I'm a real big fan of like taking things outside of what would generally be like the traditional expectation of, okay, a gallery show or a museum show or something with big footprint, and bringing it intimate, bringing it smaller scale. So bringing it inside somebody's home and only having a few people, right? Bringing it into a smaller gallery space and only having 25 people or so.
Hi, everybody. I am Dr. Kristen Donnelly of the Good Doctors of Abbey Research. At Abbey Research, we deeply believe that curiosity can change the world because it's the only thing that actually ever has, to be honest. We change our minds through stories and relationships, not shame or statistics. And as we get curious about ourselves and curious about the world around us, we actually build empathy, which is intellectual and not emotional. Then as we build empathy, it manifests in emotional intelligence. And then at the end of that, we all get to human together a little bit better. This series is in service of that whole vision. It's called Welcome to My World, and I get an incredible opportunity to talk to people who are different than me, which is literally everyone, about something in their lives that we should all know more about, something they're passionate about, an expert in. We get a peek into their lives to develop our empathy around their personal topics. And today is absolutely no exception. I am joined by TJ Walsh, who is a professional artist, a psychotherapist, and an artist coach, and absolutely the first one of those I've ever spoken to. He has a BFA in graphic design from the University of the Arts here in Philly, which is no joke for anyone who is from outside of the Delaware Valley. He maintains a painting studio in Philly, but he also has an MA in clinical counseling psychology from Eastern, which is also no joke, and here in the Philadelphia area. He's been featured on a whole host of things from NVC and Relevant to the Good Men Project to various podcasts. He writes and speaks regularly about the topics of art, culture, faith, and mental health. And those of you guys who are here because you know me know that pretty much those are four of my favorite things to talk about too. He's on faculty at Eastern in the Graduate School's Counseling Psychology Department. He teaches personality and psychosocial assessment and psychopathology, which, nerd, I love those, as well as internship seminar for students, God bless you. He also provides supervision for couples therapy and doctoral students for a PhD in marriage and family therapy program at Eastern. He's got a whole host of certifications, and we will make sure that they are in the show notes so you know that he's not messing around. He knows his stuff. All of his socials and everything are in the show notes as well. He recently founded something called the Bold Creatives Collective that I have the privilege of being a part of on the Facebook. And that's what I plan on asking him about pretty quickly. TJ, thank you so much for joining me.
Oh my goodness. Thank you so much, Kristen, for having me hang out with you. I'm really excited to be here. I've been looking forward to this for a little while. So glad we finally get to do it.
So excited. Yes, we were supposed to do this a little bit earlier in the year, but Comcast thwarted the plan, as Comcast thwarts so many things here in Philadelphia.
Yes, they're also no joke.
They're also no joke in a lot of ways of that phrase. So let's kick it off. Would you tell everybody about the Bold Creatives Collective, please?
Sure. So the Bold Creatives Collective started with me deciding, I think, somewhere along the way in my adventure of trying to build out my programming for my artist coaching clients to kind of come together and create a little community. So if you talk to me for any amount of time, whether you're like a patient of mine in my psychotherapy practice or you're a client of mine in my coaching practice, you'll know that I'm all about the relationship that we have with each other. That is really, really a primary thing. So I decided that an aspect of my coaching practice and offerings, if you will, would be a community on Facebook.
Mm.
And typically when we're creating communities on Facebook through like groups and stuff like that, they're really slow to kind of grow for one reason or another. But this one, I was really surprised. I just started creating this group probably end of March, beginning of April, and it really kind of grew quickly. You know, by Facebook standards around the world, it's still a small group, but the interest that I've gotten from it, from artists and creatives, has been a really encouraging to me, because it's proving to me, at least anecdotally, that artists tend to kind of self-isolate. I know that from my own experience, but they really do crave community, and that's what I'm trying to do in that place. And we do a few things in there. Education through little bite-sized things about how to grow one's creative life, through conversation and inspiration, which is conversations that I have with artists and makers and creatives live in the group. And then also through accountability, which is something that I'm going to be taking a little bit more seriously in the coming weeks and months, to hold people accountable to what their goals are. Because as creatives, as artists, we tend to like to wait till things are perfect before we put them out, and then we never actually get around to doing what we say we're going to do. So setting goals and keeping them is something that I'm going to start pushing pretty hard on in that community.
So you've been using, I love all of those things, and you've been using artist and creative as two separate words. Are you using them interchangeably, or to you, are they different?
Okay, so this is something that I'm trying to suss out.
Love it. Here to help. Let's figure it out.
This is something that I'm trying to suss out. So when I started Bold Creatives Collective, when I started my artist coaching part of what I offer, it was meant to be for all artists. And so I come from a visual arts background, and most of the people that run into me know that right away, right? And so I think there's some I'm trying to thwart off any kind of confusion that artists aren't necessarily visual artists. They aren't necessarily performing artists. They could be entrepreneurs. They could be people who are creating something out of nothing, being generative. And that is when I start using creatives. I think that is slightly less scary maybe to some people than saying artist. People will be really fast to say, oh, I'm not an artist. And then people will be pretty fast, but not as fast to say, I'm not creative. And so I'm trying to work that out. I think for our purposes for this conversation, or just when you talk to me, you can use them interchangeably.
Okay. I think it's something I struggle with a lot, because because I do see myself as very creative. I've been writing forever, and I created like a whole company, and I create lots of content all the time, but I very quickly would not say that I'm an artist. And I think some of that is because I have a mental thing about art. Claiming identity as an artist connects to the commerciality of your creation. And I know from loving a lot of artists that that's not correct either. It's just this like, well, I can't say I'm a singer because I don't make money doing it, but I'm good at it. I love it. I can claim that, but I'm hesitant to do it because it's not my job. So this like intersection of art and commerce doesn't feel as messy, doesn't feel as strong to me if I use the word creative, but I don't think it should be strong at all. And I'm sure when we talk about art and mental health, that particular mess is a big part of your work with coaching with your clients, I would assume.
Yeah, for sure. I work with the whole spectrum of people in the art community. So I work with people who are Sunday painters, and that is awesome, right? This is like their passion. This is something that they do to release stress, to like it's their hobby that they take seriously, but they're not putting it out there necessarily for consumption by the public. And then I work with people who, and they're hiding in the Bold Creatives Collective, by the way. We have all these people in there. I work with people who are like really, really nervous and anxious because their Broadway show is about to open back up and they're about to go back out there, right?
Yeah.
Or they have a show that's coming up in one of the premier white box gallery spaces in New York or LA, right? So I work with all of these kinds of people. And something that is really a through line for all of them is, am I legitimate if I am not doing X, or am I legitimate if I am not making money off of this thing? Am I still legitimate if my show hasn't had a curtain open in 18 months, right? Where does that leave me in the entire kind of world of my art? And so really what we got to do is kind of like break it down and say, no, you're always that person. You're always creative. You're always meant for creative making and practice, no matter whether or not you're being up there on stage live in front of people or showing your work in a gallery or museum. You are a creative person. And I think that's where the differentiation, because you're right, you're not the first person, Kristen, to tell me that there is like a filter of commerciality over top of the word artist, right? And so that's maybe where the distinction for me kind of comes with the two words is that creativity, we're all born innately creative. Just the fact that we're born, we are creative beings, right? That's what we're all about. We're all about storytelling. We're all about making images and iconography and things like that to communicate. We're communicative animals. And so that's creative. Somewhere along the way, we get kind of lost and like kicked in the pants to say, no, you can't do that. You can't be creative. You got to be serious, right? But that holds us back. So part of what I do is try and identify goals, identify realities, identify options that you can kind of choose from to make realities kind of more real, I guess, to then take action on them and move yourself forward, however that looks, whether it's getting back on that stage and making your income again as a professional actor or musician, or just getting back into your painting practice that has just been for you and maybe taking a step forward and putting it out there for the world. Maybe that's your goal, right? So really working with whatever block, whatever like imposter syndrome we have, and doing it together in a group is what this is about.
I really do love that, because my brain is whirring really fast. This happens a lot on this series, but I think about the number of people in my life who, especially over the last 18 months, as TJ and I talk, it's September of 21. As you guys are watching this, it's anytime after December of 21. So we have no idea what life is like in your future, but hello. For us right now, okay. Broadway is slowly opening. We've got Waitress back, and Philly is going to open its season, I think, with Hamilton coming in a couple months. But that is tentative. Live music venues are tentative. But it's been fascinating to me as well. You speak about the creation, look, we're all creative beings, is the number of people that have been very much like, well, it's not important that movie theaters come back. It's not as important. And I'm not sure we can hierarchicalize what is important beyond like hospitals. Let's keep those open. But for me, like movie theaters and Broadway were essential services. They are essential parts of how I human. And so this categorization that we've had over the last year and a half, I think has been even harder for those of us that fight to say like, no, creativity is really important. Art is important. Culture is important, because we're not just capitalistic robot beings. We are humans with a full experience.
No, and that's really important. And that can, like, I can take that line of thinking into any number of directions, but to like stick with your thought there first, I think we need to get back in some way to live theater or live concert music experiences, live gallery shows, right? To take it to like the visual art side of things.
Yeah.
And that's because we're human beings who require for survival, being in close proximity with one another and experiencing culture with one another, creating culture, creating art and meaning with one another. And that has been what has been so difficult for so many people over the course of the 18 months. Now we've tried to like patchwork it all together, and I think for the most part, or in many ways, it's been successful in that we've been able to maintain some semblance of connectivity and togetherness through this entire fiasco that we've been living through. But at some point, right, we lose that that connection, the antenna of emotional connection, the antenna of just energy gets really kind of fuzzy after a while.
Yeah, because it's not just creating, it's also consuming within community and creating within communities. Like, I am so grateful to keep on the Hamilton train, but I'm so grateful that Hamilton went on Disney Plus and we did the democratization of access to that art. And like, I'm so glad for that. But it is such a divorced experience from seeing a live theater. And it's the magic to
for the maker and for the consumer, right?
Yeah, I would think so. Like, I've never been, my live theater experience ended somewhere around 10th grade. So I can't really speak to, like, I've never made it onto television. Yeah. But when I like, you know, listen to podcasts and things with people, that there's a difference in, like, you need the energy. And even as a speaker, it's completely different for me to do a workshop on Zoom versus in person, because the energy of creation within the room and the ideas and the give and the take, you know, I'm a huge believer that we need to do what keeps people safe, and that these are, in fact, as much as I hate the word unprecedented times, because they are, but we can't devalue that a plan to bring art regularly back into our lives is important. And that's been my slight frustration at some of the derisiveness of, like, well, like, it's really important that we get everybody back to NFL stadiums, but it's not as important that we get Broadway back. And I'm like, I don't know if that's true, because they're creating meaning and we're creating meaning, and I happen to like both. So there's not us and them here, but
but you also want the other side of it too.
I want the other side. Yeah, I don't enjoy live sports as much as I enjoy live theater. I enjoy sports and theater, but the live aspect, there's a lot less sticky beer feet in the theater. That works for me. No, I totally, I would agree with you. If you can come away from an experience without sticky beer feet, then that was, it's a win for me. It's a win. So.
But I think you're right, for the maker and for the consumer, or for the audience participant, it's important to be in person and to be live and to be sharing in that corporate and energy that is feeding off of, you know, everybody. I know for my folks who have been trying to maintain some like active performance kind of experience throughout the pandemic, you know, doing like it on Zoom. They've been coming up with some really interesting ways of doing things on Zoom and things like that. But I hear over and over again, I just don't have that energy coming from the audience that I can feed off of. It doesn't feel real or alive to me in the same way. So, you know, I've been in conversations with a few people over the past week about, you know, well, if we required this and that, and it wasn't a full room, would you be comfortable coming back in person as an audience member or as a performer? And they're trying to think about ways that they can really make this happen, because it's really time that we need to try and do this.
Yeah, as you and I talk, I'm going to be taking TED stages in a couple of weeks, and one of them is going to be in a speakeasy, because it was the easiest way to be small and keep everybody safe while we're there. And the other one is in a big auditorium, but it's half capacity. And we may even go down to quarter capacity depending on numbers at the time. And I think I tell everybody on Clubhouse every time I'm talking, when people are asking like, well, how do you get speaking gigs right now? I'm like, everything's written in pencil. Everything is written in pencil. Don't stop creating, but everything is written in pencil. And it's very difficult. So as I'm thinking about, you're holding all of these lives and all of these stories within your brain and your life. As you think about moving forward, what changes about how we can consume art now that we've had to do it over Zoom for so many months? And what do you think we're going to bring back from the before times?
From the before times? Yeah, good question. So this, again, we're talking in September of 21. And by the time everybody sees this, it will have happened already. But this coming weekend, there is an organization in Philadelphia called In Liquid, which is a nonprofit organization that I sit on the board of that is for visual artists in Philadelphia and regionally. We do a number of things. We do programming in terms of installing our members' artwork in various locations, corporate locations, gallery locations, things of that nature. And we also sell, we act as like we're like a broker, right? So we sell work across the United States and overseas for our members. But anyway, there's a program that we run every fall called Art for the Cash Poor, which is basically an opportunity for artists in our membership or even outside of our membership to apply for a table to sell their artwork for $200 or less. And it's a really awesome opportunity for them, but also for the community who want to buy artwork, want to create a collection, but don't really have like hundreds or thousands of dollars to do so, right? And we are maintaining this year. We didn't do it last year because it was the height of everything. But we're bringing it back this year, this coming weekend, the 18th, where on a street in Northern Liberties, which is a section of the city, for those of you who live outside of the city, we're going to take 4 blocks of that street where artist vendors will put their stuff out and people will be able to come, and there'll be music and food trucks and stuff, and it'll be outside, right? Which is super, super important for, you know, what they tell us to do, keep things ventilated, right? But it bringing people back together in a way that is meaningful for multiple groups of people, the artists and the community. So I think thinking about how we can bring people together safely and also give them something that is important will be ways we'll see things coming back online that way. So that's a really exciting thing. And I think just thinking smaller is a really, it sounds kind of lame, like, oh, we got to do it small, right? But it can be really exciting too. How can we create these intimate kind of experiences for people that they can feel special and the artist can feel really special and still get our message across. So I'm a real big fan of like taking things outside of what would generally be like the traditional expectation of, okay, a gallery show or a museum show or something with big footprint, and bringing it intimate, bringing it smaller scale. So bringing it inside somebody's home and only having a few people, right? Bringing it into a smaller gallery space and only having 25 people or so, and they can rotate in and out. Earlier this summer, there in West Philadelphia, again, another section of our city, there was Porch Fest, which is a really cool music festival type of situation, but it's on people's porches. So bands, musicians come and they hang out on porches. Porches are really big in Philadelphia.
Huge. We're a big porch city. Yeah.
We are, yeah. Sit on the stoop is a thing. And so this was a really big thing. The organizers didn't do it last year because, of course, and they decided to bring it back this year. And it was like one of the biggest experiences that they've had of Porch Fest. And I think things like that, where it's like DIY and more organic in nature, can be and should probably be the way that we go.
I love that. I hope, as somebody who is very intimidated by museums and galleries often, I struggle to consume visual art because of baggage I have in my own head of like, I should understand it, or like, I should know how important this is, and not just let myself enjoy the story that's being told. I don't love galleries as much, but like smaller galleries or small, like I don't love going to the Philadelphia Art Museum, but I do like the Barnes because it's a lot smaller and more story based, and I can experience the art differently. So this idea of kind of grassroots, organic, creative spaces where I can maybe even ask questions of the artists and feel like more human connecting with the story than looking at something through glass that I can't even sneeze on. So
yeah, for sure. And that's what I hope will come back and grow, is this idea of we're able to know one another.
Yeah.
So I have a growing collection of artwork that I bring into my home, and I have my own kind of like categories of like why I will collect certain types of work and why I won't collect other types of work. But a really major category or checkbox that needs to be checked for me in order to acquire work is, do I know this artist? Have I had a conversation with them? Do I know their story? Can I maintain a connection with them? Because I'm more interested, I'm very interested in their work, of course, but I'm even more interested about them and who they are as a person and why they're making things. And so if I have the opportunity to talk one-on-one with the maker and really feel like I'm connected to them and like I'm their friend a little bit, or I'm a part of their world, then I'm more prone to probably collect that piece of art, because then it makes more of an impact on me. And there are gallery spaces and stuff where you can do that, openings and that kind of thing. But it's not as intimate as, say, a studio visit or something like that, where you can really get to know, the artist's process and their thoughts and their stories and a little bit of their history. So I think curiosity, as we get back into the world of experiencing people and their artwork, curiosity is going to be or should be really important, right? I think we could all be a little more curious with one another.
What a beautiful place to pause our conversation, bringing my business model into it. Thank you, TJ. But I've got thoughts about fan art and all these kind of other things that I would love to talk to you about another time. But we'll hit pause right now and respect both your time and the time of the audience. Pals, if you've resonated with anything TJ has said, then all of the contact information is below. Make sure to hit up Bold Creatives Collective. Make sure to check out the local art in your city. Obviously, definitely, if you are here in the Delaware Valley, we've got lots going on in Philly and will throughout the fall. We're hitting like really fun light season here in Philly. So, but there's lots and lots of local artists, both visual, performance, writing, singing, existing wherever you are. We are never very far away. So if you've also enjoyed this conversation, please make sure to hit the thumbs up. The YouTube algorithm really likes it. And if you like the vibe of the conversations, I have lots of them. So please subscribe to the channel and join the conversation in how we cultivate curiosity in our own lives and about the world around us. TJ, thank you so much for joining me. It's been a privilege.
Thank you so much. This was awesome.
So my name is Dr. Kristen Donnelly. This is Welcome to My World. My guest has been TJ Walsh, and I will see you guys next time. Bye.